You were just talking about, maybe Rembrandt being a bit of an endpoint unto himself, not necessarily fitting into the art and physics narrative. But now, we're starting to move into the general Impressionist era, or slightly before that, with Manet here and the picnic, which is pictured on the screen. So I forget if there's anything else you wanted to say, just about like the general art movements before we got into the specific pieces here.
No, I feel like, as long as people keep in mind, like, where we are in Shlain's argument, right? Because he is the one that's constructing this, as history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, his main argument here with Manet that, who he obviously regards highly, I would say, in this total narrative arc of art and physics. And Manet is a well-respected painter, just historically speaking anyway, but and this painting in particular gets quite a long treatment in the book, and mainly from the violations, the multiple violations, so to speak, that it commits, against kind of more classical ideas. And so I think the biggest ones,
and this applies to like both content and like the physics portion of things, right?
Correct. Yeah. So, as you said a little earlier in our conversation, like this was one of those paintings that caused kind of like a riotous response from the art community when it came out, and was disregarded and like just completely criticized and chastised. To like obviously to the detriment now of those critics in terms of like the evaluation of this painting and where it stands in artistic significance. But so it was a scandalous painting with the two female figures, in particular the one in front, here the nude figure, and like none of the four figures in the painting, particularly like interacting with one another, other than just being there. Like they're not necessarily looking at each other. Maybe this gentleman seated here is kind of like addressing one or the both of the other two, but and there's even like this little bit of like the Mona Lisa idea, like staring here at us with that kind of interesting look on her face. But nonetheless, like the violations of perspective, where this background female figure is appearing much larger than she should be, in terms of proper perspective rendering of things. And also like Manet does this numerous times in his paintings, and Shlain gives more than one example of Manet paintings doing this, but like kind of the crowding in of everything with the trees and the lack of a horizon line. Obviously we get like a little bit of one here in the very back, but like Schlain's pretty adamant, like this is something that had been kind of like a holy piece, if you will, like a sacred piece of a lot of artwork, or almost all artwork up until this time, was like a depiction of the horizon line. So we had an understanding of where we were in space. But Manet really just about excludes that here. And instead we get this dense forest, and it's sort of disorienting to the viewer and so on. And so I think that's a lot of what we would say about it, just from a violations point of view, and what it's accomplishing here, what Manet is doing. Even like the trees, Shlain talks about like moving them off of a perfect 90, with tilting and being more horizontal and more diagonal than horizontal in some cases. And this was another thing that artists really hadn't done up until that time. So he gives a lot of credit to Manet for making space playful, molding it around, treating it more like Play-Doh, the toy, not Plato, the philosopher, in terms of like modeling it and how to represent it.
Yeah. I think for those reasons, this might be like a perfect painting for Ethan of the new house to hear your commentary on, because so far, like everything that you just discussed has nothing to do with the narrative or the meaning, right? We just have a bunch of techniques that are being used, prior techniques that are violated, perspective, for example, as one. probably he was not trying to, make her, in fact, like 7-8 feet tall, like in the purely kind of, like logical sense. Although, like, this is essentially what you get, in the painting. Like there was another painting of his in the book. I forget what the name of it is, but I think it's like, like it's just nighttime and people are sort of, sitting around and partying. And you also get the same like disappearance of the horizon line, right? Yeah. You get the same like twisted and like bent trees that are just meant to sort of disorient you, in the same way. Let me just do. I think it was
music in the garden, something like that.
Yeah, music in the garden. That's what it
music
was.
Music in the Tuileries.
Pretty sure that's what it was. So here in my screen, like you disorient the viewer just on pure technical grounds alone, right? You make the horizon disappear, and in a sense, like if you bend the trees and you don't have a horizon, it's sort of like being underwater, like in a dark night or in space, right? You don't necessarily have the same sense of direction that you would have in normal waking reality, right? But like, beyond the kind of, art and physics interpretation that we could apply to the painting, there is some stuff going on in the narrative that, this turned out to be a very nice quality.
That is good. Yeah.
Painting. Yeah. I think it's just a Wikimedia one. That's usually the one that I normally go to. So, like here, okay. So we have like, even if this is not overtly sexual in the sense that, the men seem to be completely uninvolved with her. Mm-hmm. They're interested in like saying something. They're looking at each other. She is looking at the viewer. But there's something like here, like with the way that they're, just even disregarding like the fact that she's naked, like even if she were clothed, maybe it would have made it even less stark, but you would still have the reality of, look at the way their feet are positioned, right? So this guy that, she's not closest to physically, like look how close her foot is to his like fucking boot, right? Yep. So there is like enough intimacy of some sort going on that this is acceptable. Look how close her foot is next to his calf here. Look at how this man's leg is almost like at this guy's ass, right? Like just like we had the kind of leg thing, same thing going on here. But it's also interesting in the sense that whatever that dynamic is, even if we have even if we apply like a purely kind of like sexual reading to this, clearly that is not the only, well, I don't want to say focus because this is exactly where your mind goes. This is where, the figure forces you to go. But when you see their interaction with one another, right, the two males, you have to like put some of that kind of more sexualizing narrative, like, somewhere in the back. Right. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to think about the fact that, well, whatever might be going on sexually, there is something that's transpiring here that is at least as interesting, and even if not to you, then clearly it's at least as interesting as her to these two guys, right? And that's interesting thing about it, right? You could have your own personal assessment of the situation, but what I just said, like in this instant, right? This like Giotto, like instant of time, right? One instant for each painting. In this one instant, these two males are interested in whatever word is being exchanged, and that's just a fact. I also noticed this in terms of the narrative. So, this is like her clothes coming off, right? So, and you see,
her hat's discarded there too by the basket.
The rest of her clothes are discarded there, but like it's discarded and jumbled up right next to like the still life like picnic basket, right? Yep. So individually, so first of all here, like forget about that there's anything going on. Just look at the corner that I just zoomed in on, right? Like think about that. We talked about we talked about Mona Lisa. We talked about sfumato technique. We talked about that quote where you have like things like emerging, out of mountains, like faces out of mountains. Leonardo da Vinci says like, in every bell you get like, the sound of like every word, right?
Yes.
Just in that gong. You sort of get in miniature, a still life here, but it's a still like the clothes, right, that have been discarded, they're tied up to like the food and the picnic. And this does like help give it like a more, lecherous reading as well, right? This also, makes you sort of sexualize like parts of the painting too. And, this clearly, was done for a reason. Like, I mean, look, like the fact that the clothes are discarded in this messy way, the fact that it is like in the midst of like this like still life picnic basket food that, by that fact alone, like the food, right? She is in some way food, but it's a food that these two are not, indulging in. So even from a narrative sense, it's like, well, you expect this to be some sort of references to, mythology, but it's not really. Like, it's not. This giant woman, she could just be like a giantess that has no other, reality outside of this painting. And then you have these two guys, and then you have this figure who, this is not, as far as I can tell, a reference to anything other than the cosmos of this painting, right? So, yeah. It's mysterious in many ways, but even if you don't really understand the mystery or think there's no point to it, just again, from a purely technical sense, the fact that these elements exist and the fact that they lend quite credibly these various kinds of readings, I mean, that's interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost like we have multiple paintings composed in one painting here. It's important maybe to mention too, this is a really large painting, 7 or 8 feet.
That photo that you sent me, that was in France?
Correct. Yeah, that was when I was at the Musée d'Orsay last summer, and this painting was there at the time. I'm assuming maybe it's part of the permanent collection there.
Can you look at that photo sometime? Because I was looking at it today and compared to here, it just strikes me as I don't know why you essentially sent a perfectly rectangular painting, and I don't see any distortion. And this to me just looks like, am I wrong for thinking this is a perfect square canvas that's being shown, or like close to it?
It's close to it online here, yeah.
Because what you sent me, although it takes up the entire edge of the photo, and there's no like distortion, and like the painting of this corner ends with the dress, and here it ends with the tree, and here it ends with that bird. The one that you sent is like very rectangular. I just found it interesting. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah. No, it could be. I'm looking at that photo right now, actually, that I sent you, and so it could be that here online they've at least in terms of the width, they've condensed it down a little bit.
Yeah.
It
just doesn't look distorted. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like
right. That's interesting.
Yeah. They condensed it down to a square, but the distortion didn't happen that you would expect. Like, it just the proportions and where it ends and begins is where that photo is that you sent me. So you sent me like the real thing, right? And this is also like the real thing. And anyway, I just found that interesting.
Yeah, it's maybe important to point out too, like in the photo I sent you of the real painting, the colors are more vibrant than they appear here, and obviously whatever, some of the versions of it you could find online are going to be a little bit more vibrant. This one's slightly more dull, but it's still a good representation. So anyway, what I was going to say is, it is a large painting, like 8.5 feet by 10 feet, something like that, or close to it. So, Manet is almost completing 3 different paintings, or at least that many, like in one here, right? Because we've got what could be a still life that you pointed out in the bottom left corner, which would be an odd and interesting still life for that category unto itself, for the reasons you described. Then you'd have this, the middle section there, with the 3 main characters, so to speak, and what's going on with their interaction. then the woman in the background with being large and almost this like goddess or giant kind of figure emerging out of a pool of water, and there's the rowboat there, and then like the horizon line and maybe even a distant mountain beyond her. And then it's also just a forest scene, and we even have like a little bird up here, toward the top of the frame. So there's a lot going on. It's almost like a short story, like all put into one painting. So lots to mine there. I mean, we could go on and on about this one painting probably, but.
And the interesting thing to me is like, okay, so we know that this caused the big ruckus, but why didn't this? Right. This also, so this is now I think in the last 20 or so years, it's been ascribed fully to Titian. This also is not a clear reference to any, any kind of like mythology. But it just makes me wonder, like, perhaps like when to do that, Leonard Shlain reading, we go back to, the Renaissance and, before, suddenly it's like, well, people's concepts might be somewhat different, right? People's thoughts might be different. And, now like at the beginning of, the kind of like, Euclidean like boom, right? Once more, this kind of resurgence, maybe because it's not fully ingrained yet, this is still kind of acceptable. Just like, mosaics were acceptable, just like, Giotto's like proto perspective, even when it violated perspective, was acceptable. Whereas here it's like we have, at this point, a couple of centuries maybe of like bourgeois sensibility. A mode of like being like that is kind of like, further and further divorced from the kinds of like, I guess, base implications of like saying something like, Euclidean art. Now, like we're in a situation where Euclidean art is just trite, right? Euclidean art has sort of, lost itself. Like after Rembrandt, nothing was truly improved upon in that substantive way. So we need to do something other than Euclidean art, right? For the sake of, because, art is not Euclidean, but art could be partly Euclidean, just like it could be partly anything. And, to save the whole thing, we need to disrupt, some of those foundations to some degree, right? Because, it's not even so much that this violates, like I said earlier, perspective. It's also the fact that, I mean, like literally she could be a giantess, right? Like she could be, 7-8 feet tall. That's acceptable. That's kind of like baseline reality. Just like you can imagine like a set of events that here, would have not only had her, completely disrobe in this kind of, very like quick, chaotic way, but also in the process, without even caring to pick them up, like, overturn the picnic basket, turn it into a still life, and then have her in this kind of, very peaceful situation here. So why is there, how did this kind of chaotic situation lead to some, like, what is the causal chain there, right? Like, so you could make those judgments and you could take it literally, and it's not unacceptable to do so, right? But by saying that, these are possibilities as well, that's also like, I wouldn't even call it necessarily a rejection of, Euclidean space. It's just, in some ways kind of like pushing against it, like it's not so much that, hey, Manet is going to like eliminate the horizon line. It's the fact that, the horizon line is there somewhere. You just don't fucking see it behind the trees. Okay. It's there. It could be this thing right here, right? This could be the horizon line, this thing, this blue. But he simply painted this in a way where you don't see the horizon line, right? It's not that it's like non-Euclidean, right? So, and this is also, I guess, like a somewhat light critique that you could make of the book too, right? I mean, like Shlain can't be totally literal, right? I mean, and he knows that. But like sometimes that ambiguity opens up other ways to look at things other than the specifics of like Schlain's system. Although I think what Shlain proposes is overall like the correct way to view things, and to his credit, he is the first to propose things in such a way.